Hello and welcome to The Magic in You, where I am here with Paula Wedo, who is a practicing witch for many decades living in New Zealand. Now, in 1990, Paula established Dragonspace, which was a magical store that she ran for some 11 years in Auckland, before focusing her attention on her spiritual adventures. But in more recent times, Dragonspace has reawakened and is now an online store, through which Paula offers a variety of unique products, as well as readings and consultations. But there's more to Paula than that. A number of years ago, she wrote a book about her adventures in Haiti called Manbo, which hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about today. However, her own spiritual journey has taken her on adventures all around the world, not only into Vodou, but also into her developing a fairly broad approach to her spiritual beliefs. And at the end of the day, she reminds us that we all belong to Mother Earth and are all connected with each other. So without further ado, I would just like to bring Paula onto the screen and say, welcome, Paula. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, love. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm good. It was very nice. Excuse me. I've just got to put my glasses on and read whatever it is at the top of the screen. All right. This meet. Okay. I've just got to push OK, mate. And then I can. Sorry about that. You know how it is. That's better.
That's all right. This is modern technology. And when we get to a certain age, we have no idea what we're doing.
It's crazy. It's, I can turn them on and off and it's certainly different cutting and pasting. When I first when I made the Dragonspace calendars, when we used to do them, there was a chap who he was fabulous. He did all the art and he wrote all the spells. It was all calligraphy, it was on by hand. And we'd get these great big pieces of cardboard, like huge, and would cut and paste everything. And to photograph it, to get it to be printed, I'd be put it on the table and I'd be standing on a chair, and I'd be, and I'd stand up there. Is that straight? Is that crooked? It's so different. So different.
And just that one aspect of life. But why don't we, before we start talking about Dragonspace, why don't we start about your current path today? How do you describe yourself? You have done a whole range of things over the years. So what would you call yourself today? And
I don't know. I don't know, seriously. I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, first and foremost, doesn't matter where I've gone and what I've done, there's witch always kind of sits here like this, it's like, and from a spiritual or religious perspective, so many points of view, but still the goddess sits there. Doesn't, regardless of what it is or how it is, witch and goddess they're always there. But the adventures have been really quite interesting. I've discovered, and even when I went back into being a kid, my spiritual chapter of my big adventure usually lasts 12 to 13 years. All right, it seems I've got this 12 to 13 year cycle, and I'm in true Aries fashion dive in, and then when I kind of get to the end of it, it's not like, oh, nah, it's not like that. It's like I kind of get, spirit kind of taps me a little bit and says, let's just go down this road and learn some more. And let's just go and do something a little, it's always the same, like the core is always the same. But then so off I go on another journey. And so I've had I've had a few of those now. So I think that's what it is for me. So I really don't know what I would call myself. I just think an old lady who knows a lot of shit now. And that's about it. In my own world anyway,
That sounds perfect. I mean, in a world today where everybody's so caught up on labels, that's probably the best way to go.
Yeah. Well, I get a little embarrassed to be truthful. I tend to shuffle one foot to the other, and I get a little bit embarrassed about all of that stuff. And then, of course, I can be a little blunt. I don't mean to be. I'm just embarrassed, so I behave badly. But I don't think I'd rather someone else put it this way. It sounds a bit egomaniacal, but I'd rather someone else sang my praises and said, "Oh, she did a good job of this," or she taught me that, or whatever. I think to me it feels more genuine if it's not spelled to your own mouth. But but that's okay because we're allowed to spout as well. I just haven't got the balance there yet.
That's fine. And depending on who's listening when we're spouting. In my case, I don't know if anybody listens at all. Okay.
Oh God. Well, I'm such a bloody chatterbox, mate, that people don't get a word in, poor souls.
So why don't we sort of come back to your magical sort of inspiration, in particular Dragonspace, because Dragonspace has said it was sort of birthed in the 90s, and that was in the physical form. You're talking about some there cutting and pasting as opposed to doing graphic designs on the computer, and then it sort of closed down if you went on your worldly adventures. But then in the last while, it sort of re-emerged again. It's reawakened, as you said.
I can't escape it, Francis. I just can't seem to escape it. Like even prior to doing the website and stuff like that, people would just find me. "Are you the woman?" they would say, and I'd be like, "Yes." Oh, and they would want things, and I mean, I find that truly remarkable. It's been closed for 25 years. Oh no, not 23 years. I closed. No, I see. I can't remember. Mature pause. I think the winter solstice 2001. I remember. So I closed the three-dimensional shop on winter solstice 2001. So that's like a lot of years ago. That's a couple of decades ago, and they still would find me. So I was like, "Oh, okay then." But I mean, in all truthfulness, for me, that was a real experiment with the goddess. Yeah, I've told this story. It was, I think, a New Year's Eve. Anyway, it was New Year. Can't remember what year. Might have been 89. I can't remember. But anyway, I was out in my garden in the backyard, and I said to the goddess, I was thinking about doing this thing, and I said, "Look, all right then, I'll promote you, you promote me. You put me in the position that I can promote you and I can talk about you to everyone everywhere as much as humanly possible. Help me." And it was kind of like that. And it was then the whole thing, as far as I'm concerned, was a massive adventure with the goddess. I mean, have had some fortunate things, like two grannies. One granny, my paternal granny, she read tea leaves. My cousin reminded me about that. I'd completely forgotten. I was like, "Oh my God, she did too." And the other granny, well, she, as I got older, I would understand the things that she was telling me. She was just telling me witchcraft, and I was not quite old enough to get it then, but she was. And they were both amazing gardeners, so they both had the plant thing, and I just found that I was just a natural at it, and that's what I love more than anything, is the days and the hours and the colors and the mixing and the spells of it. It's fabulous.
And for people who maybe not be familiar with Dragonspace, so how would you describe it? Because it's almost a one-stop online shop for.
It was a witch's dairy, or witch's. We couldn't really call it a supermarket. We used to, but it wasn't really quite big enough to be a supermarket. Maybe a superette. But the whole idea was to provide everything, to provide in one place everything that a person could want, that we could possibly get, for them to do their spells and their magic, right? Like the raw materials and basics of it. And then also, I mean, I really love crafting stuff. So I had a range, incenses and powders and soaps and all of that stuff. So there was stuff there that you could utilize if you wanted to use mine, or you could buy the stuff and make your own. And it was just trying to provide, or it wasn't trying, because it did. It was just providing witches with a place that they could walk in the door and go, "Ha, it's witches," And that was awesome. Met some amazing people, just truly, truly amazing people. And so that's what I would describe it as.
And it was back in an era as you said, before the internet, before Amazon, before Temu, before anything else where you can buy stuff online. And I think out in my ritual space, I probably still have 2 jars of and I've got a temple incense of yours still, and it still smells. And this is like,
I know,
I
it's
said,
amazing,
20,
isn't
nearly
it?
30 years old.
It's actually very humbling, you know. I mean, when one of the girls found me, I got a photo of it. She said, "Oh, it's you." And I went, "Yes." And she said, "I've still got my Dragonspace box." And she sent me a photo of this box that she had with oils and powders. And I was like, "Oh my goodness me, check that out." So, you know, and I mean, from the perspective of the goddess, I mean, there's many numbers mean many things, but 9, as you know, is the number of the goddess. And so in the 90s, I mean, you know, when we were just coming up to this big changeover, which I think we've done badly, but, you know, we were just coming up to this big changeover. So, you know, it was the time of the goddess, and it was fabulous. It was just absolutely brilliant. And I used to love it. I'd open the doors and the bells would ring on the door, and you'd just walk into this waft, you know. I was like, oh, this is so lovely, so lovely. And, you know, but it was awesome. It's not the same online, I'll tell you that. Yeah, it's okie dokie, but it's just not the same.
But you are still sort of like continuing with the work, even though it's the physical space is now on an online space where people can still get the ingredients and get the herbs
Yes,
and
yes,
all,
exactly.
and you make other things based on all the initiations and spiritual journeys that you've done over the years as well. So again, it's a sort of a
Well, it does,
one-stop.
doesn't it? I mean, when I started again, someone was talking about that, and I said, "Oh, but it'll be better." And they said, "Well, how do you know that?" I said, "Well, because like I'm 20 years older for a start, and I've had 20 years more experience in my spiritual journeys, and just exactly what you said. So from like an energy perspective, there's a whole lot more under my belt, you know, than there was. I mean, it was good then. I got no complaints at all, but it just adds something, you know, it brings more to the party. So yes, I found that, you know, the whole process is just interesting. You know, I've got dragon's blood in my cupboard that I've had for 30 years.
Oh.
And people go, "Will you sell that?" And I go, "No." I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I say, "Oh no, this is real," you
Yeah.
know. But anyway, but you know, it was just wonderful, you know, and the goddess is truly amazing. And I had the most amazing, amazing experiences and met the most incredible people. It was fun. And just very recently, there's a lady who just lives over in Whitianga. Her name's Megan. And we were talking about stuff, and she said that she found Dragonspace. She was 18, all right? And, you know, her listening to her memories of it and what would happen when she'd arrive, it was amazing. I was like, my gosh, you know, it affected you, influenced you that much. And, you know, and she's still practicing witchcraft,
Mm. Mm.
you know.
And I think in a way, and when before I hit record, we were sort of talking off camera about all of us of a certain vintage and comparing ourselves to
Yeah.
for today, and some of the differences, shall I say. I'm trying to be very polite, but and this is something that I've noticed in a lot of arenas today. We've got this wealth of information, which is fantastic, but in a way, it's almost like everything's explained. The mystery, the
Yeah.
sensation, that sort of like, oh, that's a surprise that all value almost is explained away, or people expect all that. People don't want to be in awe or have the unknown anymore.
Well, I think that's virtually, no, I'll take virtually back because I'll rephrase that. I myself personally don't feel that you grow well, bearing in mind that when we started, there was nothing. I don't believe you grow good roots. If you look at a plant, it starts off and its roots go down. You know, a little baby plant, its roots go down and then up it comes. And that's how it works. All right. If you haven't got a good root system, then a tree will topple over very quickly. You know, plants fall down in the wind. And I don't think we're any different. I'm astounded that, like we were talking about, there's so much information. There's so much information out there. But like we were talking about, I've watched stuff that's lost. I know that stuff, and I know that stuff's to be real. And I know if you do that stuff, you get this, it adds unto your results. And that's how I work. I mean, I want to get as many harmonics into whatever it is that I'm doing. Doesn't matter what it is. I want as much in there that vibrates as what I want, because that's to me what a spell is. It's a recipe. You are cooking. Different sort of cooking, of course. You know, I mean, today's Tuesday. Oh, it's a Mars day. Let's do a Mars thing. You know, let's have 9 of this and red of that and blah, 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 blah. You know, and to me, that's how it works, because that's the process that I learnt and developed. And I just feel that the more harmonics we've got in a thing, the better the result. You know, I just think it's just about getting as many vibrations the same. So sometimes I feel that, and I watch some of this stuff, and there's not, some information is missing. You know, I mean, what's a silly example? Right. Silly example. Just say you were going to do a love spell. You know, obviously, you know, you're going to want to do it when the moon's getting bigger, you know, because you want it to come to you. But, you know, they'll say, oh, do this on Friday. And it's like, yeah, well, you got the day right. But then, you know, the tide, because it's tides, isn't it? So, you know, if you're doing something that you want to bring to you and the tide's going out, you know, you can't make the tide come back until it's ready to, because it's following its own rhythm, you know. So, you know, you might get what you want eventually, but you might have to wait a lot longer. But I just think those things are important. And I think because, I mean, as I said, this is just my opinion. But everything is so fast now, as we know, you know, it just is. And I feel that sometimes this is not to our advantage with some stuff. You know, some spells, you know, you have to cast your nets very far. You know, sometimes when you're working, you've got to cast it out a long, long way. And you've just got to wait till it brings itself and you can bring it back in. And you can't do that in 2 days and 3 minutes. You know? But it's
And
okay.
sometimes too, something that we're looking for or we want in our life might not be the thing that soul, goddess, whatever, or the underlying thing we're looking very, and this is sort of my beef, if there's like, everything's very sort of superficial. I want it for me now, this very minute. And it's just like, well, take a breath. What else do you want beyond this minute, like for next week? How is that going to play out in your life? How is it going to change you? Because especially when we're coming to witchcraft, witchcraft is about change, or magic's about change. Can you handle the change? What change do you want? And sometimes
Exactly.
the change that comes into our life, we go, oh, we haven't thought about that. And it's
Takes
just
the
like,
least line of resistance. You know, magic takes the least line of resistance. So if you set out a spell, for argument's sake, it'll find the easiest way to get it. Just as an example, a Dragonspace example, there was a guy that came in to the shop and he wanted to do some magic to get a new job, right? So we sorted it. We made a plan and we sorted it and whatever he needed. And he came back a few weeks later and he did the spell and he got fired. You know, because he wanted a new job. He desperately wanted a new job, but he for whatever reason, but he couldn't take the step. He wouldn't take the step, and he couldn't let go. So he got fired. You know, I mean, he to get what he wanted, he had to let go of what he had. And I mean, I know that's not exactly what you're talking about, but that's what happens.
but then that sort of is because in order for him to get a new job, he had to let go of the old job.
That's right.
And sometimes we don't think about that middle step in between.
That's right. And he wasn't letting go.
Yeah, I've had instances where and it's in a different context, like through, like I use mantra, and sometimes we'll work with Carly, and she's a good one to sort of help remove difficult situations. And sometimes it's not, say, the opposing person, the work colleague who is the problem or who will be removed. Sometimes it is us. And this is what's happened in your instance and also
That's
my
right. It
example.
always takes, and especially with somebody like Carly, the great destroyer, boom, you know, and you know, it's like, right, you want something? Right, well, I will just blow up your entire bloody world. And while you're sitting there with your hair full of ashes, you know, let's have another go. You know, and I think that that needs to be seriously understood. Yeah, and for me, I feel well, like it's the roots, you know. To me, that's the spiritual grounding, and I also know and respect that you don't have to be spiritually minded to practice magic at all, because it's a combination of it's correspondences and combinations, okay, of spells, and knowing the language of correspondences and the language, the magical language of whatever it is you're using. And you don't have to be spiritual in any way to do that. You know, you just don't, because that stuff works. It's on its own frequency.
You just need to believe in it. That's all.
Aye. But I feel, and personally, that if you need, or we need to develop a good spiritual grounding, you know, and I mean, it's very, very important, because, you know, earth, air, fire, water makes spirit, yeah. So come on, you know, it's very, very important that we get that connection. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I sometimes wonder, with the speed with which everything happens now, whether that actually has time to develop. Because I know, and you know, as we go along our journey, our egos come into it, and we have to have that war with our egos, you know. I mean, it's so important to have an ego. It's so important, but it's got to know its place, you know. Otherwise, you'll get wild and want to curse everybody. You know, or otherwise, you know, you think you're so much better than, you know, magically, then it just, all of those things have to be dealt with, I think, as we grow. And I think that's spiritual. I think that grows from our souls and from our spirits. I don't think that grows from our magic, you know, but I think they're very important together.
Yeah,
But anyway.
and also understanding, well, from my perspective too, my place in the greater all. It's like I'm not an individual, isolated being. Any magic that I do creates almost a ripple effect, and you can call it threefold
Well, it has
return
to.
or cause and effect or whatever. I don't care what people
Exactly.
believe in, but it flows out and it changes.
Yeah, well, I think that anyone who wants to practice needs to learn the Hermetic principles, okay? Because they are the laws of the universe. But exactly, cause and effect. I think we use the word karma a lot. I kind of I do respect and understand what we're talking about, but I think that cause and effect are the words that we should be using, because you know, karma belongs to Kali, if you know what I mean. It comes from that place, and you know, and what we call karma in our world is literally cause. Whatever you cause affects you. You know, I mean, it's the simple, isn't it? As within, so without, as above, so below. You know, it's just this is the stuff, you know, and this is what people need to, I think, seriously grasp. I remember it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. And I was sitting where I was living, and I was sitting outside in the grass. It was years ago. It was early 90s. I don't know, it was years ago. And I was sitting under this walnut tree, you know, and I was sort of sitting there contemplating the grass, you know, and it was like, yep, we're the same. You know, it was like, yep, we're the same. You're my cousin. You know, we got the same mother. You know, we come from the same place. We're just in a different format. You are just like me. You were born however you were born, and you're growing. Look, and you're at some point you'll die, and we're all the same. Everything is the same, and I think that we need, that helps us. Well, that helped me grasp the idea that, you know, we are, everything is together. Everything is together. I think it must be harder for some youngsters now because the whole process, isn't it, is that everybody strives for individualism. Do you know what I mean? We're not kind of, I mean, if you go to Africa or Haiti or somewhere like that, you know, there's a community thing going on, you know, and we sort of have community, but everybody is, it's all individualistic. And, you know, so I think that doesn't always help, but, you know.
And it also helps us from, I think, again, come back to that whole spiritual aspect, that we're part of the greater whole. We're not just not, I said, what happens, what I do to me in my magic, whether I wanting to bring something into my life or remove something, it's going to ripple out and affect other people, either depending on what level it is, whether I intend
Well, it can't not, because that's what magic is, isn't it? You're going to do something and you're going to put it out there, and it's going to move whatever it needs to move, or gets however it does it. And I think that's where I think we need to be responsible, behave responsibly. But hey, you know, it's not possible for us not to affect things. It's like, it's just not, you know, and I think once we get the hang of that, and really start to fully grasp that we are the same as everybody else and everything else on the planet, well, then I think that kind of, well, for me, it changed a lot of it for me, you know. It's like, yeah, okay, you know.
So that was going to be my next question for you, Paula, is just like, how do you think your path has shaped you? I mean, you have sort of talked about how it sort of helped you grow and understand that we're more interconnected, but in other areas of your life, like the more mundane, do you separate your magical life, your Dragonspace stuff from your normal day-to-day, or is it all just
no, because it is my normal day-to-day. This is my normal day-to-day. You know, I hear what you're saying, but no, I don't have like two realms, so to speak. You know, I don't go to work in the office and have my office sensible clothes realm and, you know, look at a computer, whatever, I bless them. I mean, you know what I mean. I don't have that in my life. The closest I get to that is the supermarket life. You know, so I mean, my world is just my world, and I just operate in it. And I couldn't imagine, I can't separate it really. I mean, it's everywhere all the time with everything. You know, I mean, you see people, we were invited to a birthday party, my friend and I, a couple of weeks ago. And she's an introvert, okay? But we lasted 40 minutes. We got to this lady's 60th birthday. We lasted 40 minutes, because when she asked us to come, we were both like, you know, and when we were going to go, and she said, are you going? So too many auras, too many auras. And that's how it is for me. I go into places and it's like crash, 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 you know, and it's like, oh no, need the peace. So I just don't think that it doesn't, you know, but from the perspective of shaping me, yes, it has. I don't know how to explain it. I've just continued to refine myself as to the best of my ability, or if there's something that the goddess has decided that I should be doing or not be doing, well, then, you know, I usually get sort of, well, I used to, I better be careful. I sort of would get trained with thwacks about the head, you know. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Don't go there, Paula. Don't go there. Oh, look, I'm just going over here. And boom, it's like, oh, I should have just listened, you know. So there's been, you know,
so you talk about the goddess. So is this just a being, a divine being that's has, you know, no name, or is she a specific deity, or just the
I think it's
feminine?
everything. I think it's everything. To put it in a very crude and mundane way, I remember saying this once. I liken the goddess, like a giant pizza, all right, with lots and lots of slices. Okay, and every slice has a different goddess topping. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's all still the goddess. I don't know if I think about it as I do. It's an internal thing, but it's also an external thing, because, you know, like the goddess is in everything. I mean, we live on her. If we want to get to the most physical goddess that we can have anything to do with. Well, I'm sitting here with my trees and plants, and and here I am, and she's right outside the door. She's right underneath me, and she's out. This is the Great Mother. So from a physical perspective, we live on the goddess. She provides everything. So from an outer perspective, she's always there. She's always there. So yeah, I think about her on the outside, but I also, there's so much that goes on the inside, And like I said, to me, it's always in the end, it's always the same, but a different topping.
Mm.
I've never been one for, I mean, it's just, I know it sounds terrible, but it's a really good analogy. I've never been one for maiden goddesses or mother goddesses, really. Like, I mean, Earth's something different, so I contradict myself. But, it's always been the crones and the underworld goddesses and the dark goddesses and the death goddesses. That's always been where I've gone. It's always like the darker, I don't know if darker path's the right words to use, because, people will, do what they do. But, it's never been an easy path. It's, what this is like when you're walking on the mountain, on the goat track in bare feet, and you're hurting your feet on stones.
Blindfolded,
Look
yes.
down there, and there they all are walking along, comfortable and light. And you're going, why are you doing this to me? But it's what you choose, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And she's a good one to remind us, saying, well, you chose to be here. And it's just like, oh, okay, yes, I did answer the call, didn't I? I didn't go through that shiny door. I went through what was behind the
well,
shed.
I thought that at the beginning, like really way back in the beginning, when I was, my son was a little baby and I was at home before all of this kind of public stuff started. And at the time, that was when like the New Age movement was kind of being born, and they were doing workshops and stuff like this, and I so wanted to go. I so wanted to go to those, but I could never go to them because we didn't have the money. All right, one income. I couldn't do it, and for a while there, I was kind of disappointed. But now, like I remember one time thinking about it, and everyone is going to the light, up the tree, here's the tree, up the tree we go to the light. And I'm thinking, well, that's lovely, but I'm not going there. If you're going up, I'm going down. It's the roots that matter. I mean, not for everything, but like if a tree, for argument's sake, dies, or a plant dies, it's and the roots is where death starts. But anyway, to me, I just yeah, no, that wasn't the way to go. This was the way to go. So I get that, but it does put you on a different path, but it does bring a different power, and it does give you a different perspective.
And it's almost like a more grounding one, because it's where the roots are, which is
well, if you're under
really.
the dirt, mouthful of dirt, yeah, you stay grounded. But
Yeah.
yes, no, I concur. I mean, this is the thing that I find with computer stuff, and like I said, I really respect how amazing it is. True, it's like, but it's virtual. All right, so I mean, it's in the astral realm, and it's an element here, obviously, but it's virtual. I mean, here we are having this conversation, but we're both virtual. I mean, you're three-dimensional there, I'm three-dimensional here, but somewhere in the middle, we turn into some other space. And that's why I think, especially with witchcraft and magic or spell crafting, to me, it's absolutely got to be so 3D, because that's where it happens, So I do find that interesting. And I feel that some people, if they could incorporate, I'm being polite, if they could incorporate, more grounding, come back down to earth, get off the computer, and, it's a little bit more than just lighting your candle, go outside,
Down your
give a
phone,
chat
you
to your mother.
don't need an app to tell you where the sun is.
No, you don't, love, it's in the sky.
Yes. or we don't need to know like the constellation. Okay, you might want to, but
Yeah.
get to learn to see them yourself. Well, maybe not in our days with our light pollution, but you can certainly can know some of them. But there are ways of sort of familiarizing yourself as
I
well.
think
And
it's interesting. I think one of the things that is really, really important, well, this is what I always thought was important anyway. Witches walk between the worlds. Okay, between the worlds. Now, because I believe that the goddess is three-dimensional, Earth Mother, and so I believe that whatever we need, and she provides us whatever we need to do our work, and I believe that she shows us things, right? So between the worlds, there are times between the worlds. All right, like sunrise and sunset, right? Sunrise, no longer night, not yet day. Okay. Sunset, no longer day, not yet night. Tide lines, all of these, sometimes water, sometimes land. These are between the worlds. And these are from a magical perspective, or these are so important. These are like the zones. If you can go, well, sometimes if you've got up in the morning and the moon and sun are both in the sky and you go, oh, you can't be more between than that. And for my own self, I've always believed that those are very, very important. I don't, Mrs. Me, just this is but I don't believe, like, when I say I don't believe in white light, I don't believe in white light. I don't want to imbue anything with white light. But I believe this is just how I practice myself. But the goddess provides and shows us every single thing that we need, because none of this is hard. She's really awesome. She just, here you go, love. And I'm like, thanks. So if sunrise and sunset are the most magical times, twice a day we get the most magical times possible, sunrise and sunset. And if you look into the sky, the colors are divine. That gorgeous pinky, apricot-y, red, okay, to me, that's the color of magic. All right, because it's divine. And some people, myself being one of them, I'm not a great visualizer, right? I'm a doer. And if I had to go to someone and someone said, see an apple in your head, I'd be like, where is it? Where is it? Oh, yeah. I can't see the apple. But, I believe that the goddess provides us with what we need to see and know. And if you can say to anybody, picture a sunset or picture a sunrise, and immediately the color, your mind is filled with the color, because everybody goes, yes. So, I mean, I'm not saying that white's not, it's not like that. But to me, it's like, yeah, there it is. Those are the times between the worlds. So the best time for witches is between the worlds, and the most magical time is between the worlds. And look at the color,
wonderful.
And so that's kind of how I work.
And unfortunately, we're running out of time, Paula. And
Oh,
I feel like
damn.
we've only just started. We've got so many questions I want to ask you, but so much more you can share. So maybe we can catch up another time. But before we go, do you have any advice for the seeker today? Now, you have already just told them to get outside, to look at sunrise and sunset, look at the colors, anything else, especially navigating all this I feel it's an overload of information today.
Well, I think I really think you can't beat basics. Okay. I think that, well, I mean, if you came to me and I was going to teach you, I'd shut the books and turn the computer off and make you write stuff. You know what I mean? Because that's how you learn it. But I think people need to get grounded. I really think that we need to get grounded, and we need to find God, whatever you determine her to be, and I don't think it matters what we determine her to be. And, but if we're happy with that, she's happy. She doesn't mind. She's got everything covered, so she doesn't mind. So, I think that's really, really important. And one of the things that really I've discovered with Dragonspace, it was something I discovered in Dragonspace, I think, can't remember. 7 times 7, you know, seven's the most magical number, and you know how it disappears. You know, it doesn't come back. Once you might have 7 ones are 7, and then after that, until you get to 7 tens, it just disappears. Right. So 7 times 7, according to the Egyptians, 7 times 7 is the most magical number, and 7 times 7, i.e. 49, is a very, very important time. Karmically, I so don't like the word, you know, in our lives, from our spiritual development, everything. Okay, it's really vital. And from what I can remember, the information that I had was like, so when you get to 49, you know, whatever it is, your karma comes to meet you. Okay. And depending on how you've managed, all right, and you go from there. But they had this thing, and you would probably know about it, and it was called Hekau, Hekau. And the Egyptians said that if you speak the truth, eventually every word you say will come true. And I was like, wow, that's a great bloody spell, you know? And it's true, because you know, it is. What we say is what we get, is what we are, is who we are. So that their thought was, if one speaks the truth, every word one says will come true. So if you're speaking the truth, you can go, I've got one of those, or I have one of those, and you will, because you speak the truth. And it was just like, that blew me out of the water. And I think that perhaps one of the hardest things for us as mortals to do is go, hi, I'm a baby witch. I've been at it for 5.5 minutes. I don't know anything, but I'm so excited. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that beginning of, like, the seed is planted with honesty. And that has far greater power than anything we pretend. And I think that was one of my biggest, I'm going to be very careful now. I'm preaching. I'll probably, probably tomorrow I'll find myself in a position that I'll be going, oh, I shouldn't.
But it's that aspect of being humble.
Yes.
Humbling yourself. And it's just like, yeah, I've been practicing for X amount of years. And I think the more I practice, the more I realize just how little I know. And I'm not going to get through it all in one lifetime.
Oh, no, no, no.
How many books
And
I collect.
we don't have to. You know, this, look, I really, just with what's happened for me in the last couple of years with health, I mean, I've had a couple of brushes with death. You know, she's been sitting at the end of the bed. It's like, hi. Do I have to go now? I'm not going now, I'm not going now. But, you know, the fact of the matter is that we're here. I understand now that all of our lives are just glorious adventures, okay? Everything, your books, every time you write a book, it's an adventure. You know, every time we go out and do something, it's an adventure. You know, some adventures are great. My last one wasn't health-wise. It was a very ugly adventure. I didn't like it at all, but it was still an adventure. And my job in the middle of all that adventure was to, you know, suck it up, put my shoulders back, and still be grateful and be happy. Just because there was all this other stuff going on does not mean I can't be happy. But I really feel, and I think with Hekau, that was one of the things that greatly affected me. You know, it greatly affected me, because when I thought, oh my gosh, that just makes it so easy. You've just got to practice telling the truth, and then eventually every word you say will come true. And of course, you know, a few candles and a bit of herbs don't hurt to add to the mixture, but I think that was one of the things that I think is really important. And I feel that there's so much pressure on people now. We're lucky because we've been at it for a little while now. So that, I think, that desire to be better, bigger, brighter, gooder, you know what I mean? We're past that, thank the goddess. But, you know, I think there's I think that can be quite difficult for people, because people are so influenced, and everybody, you know, I just feel that they want to be important, and we all are important whether we know or not. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining that very well.
I think it's something that the more people need to sit with their own, where they are at. Again, I think this is something I've mentioned in other videos too. Instead of looking externally for validation or to compare ourselves to other people, it's about us. you know, the internal person
Absolutely.
as
Well, if
above,
you
so
can't
below.
find it within, you're never going to find it without. I mean, it's all smoke and mirrors. You know that. You know, when you push pull, you know, you can't, it's not out there. I mean, it is, it's just never out there, especially with other people. You know, I mean, it's just not. And it's not people, unfortunately now it's not people's nature. It appears, not maybe everybody, but it appears that it's very difficult for other people to lift other people up. And just go, look, that's wonderful. You know, like I said to you at the beginning, look at all those books there, girl. You know, how awesome. That's just so awesome. But, you know, it's just interesting. And I think that's really important. But I do believe that it can be harder for people to, you know, you get here soon enough. You know that. You've just got to be patient and go along the journey. And then all the things that you wanted to be when you started, you are now. And the trick is to just keep working towards that without pretending that you're something at the beginning.
Yeah, tying back to what you were saying earlier about you know, about speaking your truth. Also, I mean, to me, this is what witchcraft is all about: is getting to know who you are. And yeah, you talking about doing a love spell. Yeah, that's love externally. That could be fantastic. But do you love yourself? What's your relationship with you?
Exactly.
That's important.
Exactly.
Bring it
And
all back home.
if you're insecure and obsessive, let's just say, and you're doing love spells, what in the name of the goddess is going to turn up at the door?
I'll say, watch the craft.
Oh,
It's a good example of a love
that's an
spell
idea. That was a cute
gone
little
wrong.
movie. I like that.
Wrong. Yeah, so there's a few learning experiences in that one.
Yeah, but you know, I just, you know, I just feel that I love this. The kids are amazing. The youngsters are incredible. I mean, they're so much more evolved than we are. And, you know, so many are born in the 20s, you know, in the twos, which is a goddess number. We were born in a number of the sun, one. They're all born in the number of the moon. Okay, so they got some stuff going on for them that we don't have, you know. So their intuitions and things are different. And I think they're more evolved and quite remarkable. But I think there's so much pressure on them. And what they need to do is just put the brakes on. You don't have to compete with anybody. You don't have to anything anybody. Your job at the beginning, or our job all the way through, really is to find a goddess or whatever you choose, however you choose, and build your spiritual body and just work quietly with the products that Mother Earth has given us with all their wonderful qualities and be as honest as you can, you know?
Yeah.
You know, that you in Africa have a proverb: be truthful, do good, be truthful, do good, be truthful, do good. The spirits acknowledge and help those who are truthful and do good, you know, and you know, I think that's important. What makes me sad, and then I'll let you go, darling, sorry. What makes me sad is you look at some of these websites and, you know, you don't give a baby fire. You don't, you know, you don't leave a kettle cord where a baby can pull a boiling kettle down. Okay, you just don't do that shit. But you know, oh look, here's a curse. Here's a hex. You want to get back at your ex? You know, it's like love, you know, and you know, there seems to be this massive menu, for want of a better term, of this sort of stuff. And yeah, you know, that stuff can come in handy, but not in the hands of a baby. And people can cause untold damage to other people because they can wreak havoc.
Themselves, but also
Yeah,
always
always
don't know
whatever you cause affects you.
Yeah, unfortunately. But we are running out of time, Paula, which is
All
very
right, darling.
unfortunate. But if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Probably my email address.
And that will be this below for with Dragonspace.
Yeah, no, probably that's the best thing. I mean, I think it's on the website. I think my telephone number's on the website. You know, if you want to, if they want to. But yep, no, that's not a problem. And it's so good to see you. It's just so nice to see you, you know. I watch you and your adventures and I go, oh, look what she's doing. Oh, look, she's in Egypt. Look where she is. This is so exciting. And it's just lovely. You know, you've been on this journey for a long time, love.
There's lots of adventures. There's still lots of adventures I'm being called to do. So
oh, I reckon I'm very nicely jealous of you The Haitians have this thing, you know, if they like something that you're doing, and they mean it nicely, it's a compliment, they'll go, I'm so jealous, you know, and it's like, well, thank you. That's what they do, you know. It's like, God, I'm jealous of you. Well, thank you. You know, and so in the nicest possible sense, you know, probably pretty emerald green, not the yucky color. But you know, I look at what you do and think, God, I'm just jealous. Look at that girl leaning up against that column in that temple. You know, I think it's just fantastic. It's just fantastic.
Oh,
You
well,
know,
like,
and
I've
you
had one
know,
or two brushes with death, and my thing was like, there's so much to explore.
that's
And we
right. You
do it
don't,
now.
and you know, just from my personal experiences in the last few years, you don't go till you're going, and that's the end of the
Mm.
story. You
Yeah,
know, she don't come and get you till she decides.
mine was the
Mm.
cosmic fry panda saying, "What are you doing? Get out there." It's like, okay, yes, ma'am. But we're going to have to
Silly.
go. Have to go, Paula,
But
which is unfortunate, but we're going to have to wrap this up. So I just would like to thank you very much for spending some time and talking about the magic in you.
uh, well, thank you, darling, and it's so nice to see you. You know, it's just so lovely to see you, and you know, I hope it's if it gives anybody any information or any help, they're more than welcome. You know,
Mm.
but it's just
And
my
that,
opinions at the end of the day.
and that's all what really matters. It's all just everybody's opinions. But to hear more about Paula's opinions, check out Dragonspace, and the link will be below.
Okay, all right, darling. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
And let's talk. I mean, we'll say that blah blah blah. Let's talk soon.
Okay.
Be
I
nice